grab a seat, because this one? You won't believe where it goes. It started with the air conditioner. Not a lipstick on a shirt. Not a suspicious phone call. Just that dull humming sound coming from the bedroom window unit. One I knew hadn't worked in 2 summers. I'd been meaning to get it repaired, but every time I brought it up, she'd wave it off with, "Just leave it. We don't use that room anyway." So tell me why, one Wednesday evening, I come home from work, and it's on. Buzzing, wheezing, pushing air into a room we hadn't slept in for over a year. I didn't go in. I just stood in the hallway, keys still in hand, listening. The door was cracked just slightly, enough for a sliver of light to sneak out. I didn't hear voices, just the mechanical hum and a faint, unfamiliar perfume, something floral and expensive. Definitely not the citrusy one she used to borrow from her sister. She walked out of the room 10 seconds later, holding a wine glass like nothing happened. Said she was organizing the old closet. I asked about the AC. She blinked. "Oh yeah? It got hot in there. I turned it on." Except the remote hadn't worked for months. I nodded, said nothing, and that's when I knew. But the real twist? I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. I didn't cry. I just waited. For days later, she said she was invited to an old friend's birthday party. The kind of party that went well past midnight and into the hazy hours where things stopped being innocent. His name? Micah, her ex. The one she said nearly ruined her life. The one she would never go back to. That night, she slipped on a red dress I didn't know she still had, pulled her hair into a style she hadn't worn in years, and left without asking if I'd be awake when she got home. She didn't come home. And while she danced in the arms of her past, laughing too loud and sipping wine that wasn't ours, I stayed home. But I didn't just sit there. I did something. And when she walked through the door the next day, hungover, trying to fake nonchalance, she was absolutely stunned. Because everything had already changed. The first thing she noticed was the silence. Not the usual comfortable silence, the kind that lingers after a long day, but the eerie, too perfect kind, like the calm before something breaks. She stepped inside wearing that wrinkled red dress like it was armor, heels in her hand, probably to soften the sound of her arrival. She looked drained, hair tangled, lipstick faded, the scent of cheap wine still clinging to her clothes. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Her eyes immediately went to the hallway, the frame wall. Gone. All the photos of our vacations, birthdays, Sunday mornings in bed, every snapshot of our so-called story had vanished. In their place were 6 nail holes. Empty, deliberate. It was the first strike. She blinked, confused. "Where are the pictures?" I was in the kitchen, finishing my coffee. I looked up and said calmly, "Oh, took them down. Didn't feel like living in a museum of lies." She laughed, a weird, broken chuckle. "Is this about Micah? Seriously?" I didn't answer. I just gestured toward the dining room table, where a manila envelope sat waiting for her. She walked over slowly, eyes narrowing, the bravado leaking out of her with every step. Inside was a printed email. Not from her. From Micah. She read it twice. I watched her lips move, then stop. His words were matter of fact, thanking me for lending her for the night, saying she clearly needed the nostalgia, and ending with a charming line. "You're braver than I'd ever be, letting her go like that." She dropped the envelope like it burned her. "You went through my email?" "No," I replied. "He sent it to me. Directly." The color drained from her face. Why would he? Because I asked him to. Silence again. Then I finally said what I'd been holding in my chest like a brick. "I wanted to know if you'd go through with it." "And you did. No hesitation. You even smiled in your photos." She flinched. "You saw?" "I saw enough." She staggered backward into the chair, suddenly realizing it wasn't just a fight, it was the fallout. The room felt colder now. Or maybe she was just beginning to feel the real weight of what she'd done. And the worst part? I hadn't even told her the rest yet. Because what I did while she was gone wasn't just petty. It was permanent. And she was seconds away from realizing it. She sat there in that half-lit dining room, staring at me like I'd suddenly become a stranger. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She was searching for the right emotion to perform. Guilt? Shock? Anger? But none of them fit. Because the look I was giving her wasn't rage. It was peace. Quiet, resolved peace. That made her nervous. I could tell. Finally, she broke the silence. "You didn't do anything stupid, did you?" I sipped my coffee, then tilted my head. Define stupid. Like, you didn't tell anyone? About Micah? Her voice cracked around his name. That's when I got up and walked over to the hallway closet. I opened it slowly and pulled out a cardboard box. The same one we used to keep our Christmas cards in. I placed it gently in front of her. She didn't touch it right away, just stared, arms crossed tightly across her chest like she already regretted breathing. I opened the lid for her. Inside, her clothes, neatly folded, a toothbrush, a pair of heels, a framed photo of her with her mother, everything from her side of the bedroom. Her hands started shaking. Why are you packing my stuff? Because it's not your bedroom anymore. That's when the panic cracked through the performance. Elwood, stop. You're being dramatic. This was one night. One stupid decision. No, this was clarity. Remember? That's what you said you needed. She stood up, trying to tower over me. But it didn't work this time. Her voice raised, but I didn't. Where am I supposed to go? I assumed Micah's, I said calmly. You already know the way. She tried to grab the box, then stopped herself. You can't just kick me out of our house. Already did, I said, pointing toward the door. Your name was never on the deed. I paid it off last year. And while you were at the party, I had the locks changed. Now her hands dropped to her sides. Empty. Helpless. She looked around like someone waking up in a burning room. This is insane, she whispered. No, I replied. What's insane is what I found in your phone backup. She froze. You went through my? I didn't need your phone. It's synced to the cloud on my account. And what I saw, I leaned closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. Wasn't just you and Micah. And that's when she finally understood. This wasn't about one night. This was about everything. And I wasn't done yet. She didn't speak for nearly a full minute after I said it. She just stood there, trying to read my face like it was a foreign language. I think a part of her still believed this was just about Micah, just some wounded pride thing I'd eventually get over. But the moment I mentioned her phone backup, something shifted. The bravado she clung to like a shield crumbled with the silence. I don't know what you think you saw, she said slowly, her voice cracking with forced calm. I stepped back and grabbed my laptop from the counter. I'd left the screen on. I turned it around to face her. There it was, the synced folder of auto-saved videos. Not from last night, not even recent, but from the past year. Names I didn't recognize in the titles. Locations I had never been to. And the worst part? Some of the clips weren't even recorded by her. She had received them. Her hand shot up as if to close the screen, but I gently pushed it away. Don't, I said. You don't get to hide now. She backed up like the computer itself might bite. You shouldn't have gone through my stuff. You were sending yourself through it. I snapped. I just opened the door you left wide open. She collapsed into the chair like the weight finally got too heavy. I didn't mean for things to get that far. I laughed. Not the funny kind. The hollow kind that comes out when there's nothing left to protect. You were cheating on me before I even knew there was something to be worried about. And now you want to stand here and act like Micah was just some isolated mistake? She looked up at me, finally starting to cry, but it wasn't the kind of crying that makes you want to hold someone. It was ugly and shaky and full of panic. I was angry. I felt invisible. And I was stupid, I said. Stupid enough to think loyalty guaranteed respect. I leaned in close and whispered. This wasn't revenge. It was routine. She tried to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. She knew I was right. And then I gave her the final hit. By the way, I sent the videos. To your sister, your mother, and your boss. She gasped like she'd been slapped. You didn't. I did. Her phone lit up right then. It was already beginning. The moment her phone lit up, I saw it. The shift. Her whole posture changed, like her spine had turned to liquid. She stared at the screen, blinking hard, and then swiped up with trembling fingers. 1 unread message, then 3, then 8. Her mouth moved like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I watched her read the preview of the first message. Then she dropped the phone onto the floor like it had electrocuted her. Why would you do that? She whispered, her voice so thin it barely registered. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at the broken frame lying in the corner, the one she knocked off the wall a few months ago during one of our arguments and never bothered to pick up. That frame used to hold our wedding photo. She had replaced it with a print of some mountain view we never visited. I did it, I finally said, because the man you betrayed would have just cried in the shower for 3 weeks and pretended everything was fine. I'm not him anymore. She got up and grabbed her phone with both hands. I need to fix this, she mumbled, walking in circles, opening apps like she could delete reality itself. My job, my mom's going to disown me. What did you send them exactly? The truth. Nothing more, nothing less. Her fingers flew across the screen. She was trying to call someone, probably her sister, the one who used to brag about how Geneva always lands on her feet. Not this time. Her calls went unanswered. I knew they would. People talk, especially when what they've seen is hard to unsee. She spun toward me, eyes wild. You ruined me. No, I said. I just stopped protecting the version of you you kept selling to everyone else. She slumped against the kitchen counter like her legs gave out. You don't understand, this wasn't just cheating. It was supposed to be temporary. A way to feel something again. You mean feel wanted? I said. So you traded me for attention. Again, and again, and again. She was crying harder now, but I didn't move. I felt it, sure, that old instinct to hold her, comfort her, tell her we'd figure it out. But that instinct had died somewhere between video number 2 and the folder labeled locked. Then came the knock on the door. She froze. I already knew who it was. And the next 10 seconds would flip her entire world upside down, in a way I hadn't even warned her about yet. She didn't move when the knock came. She just stared at the door like it might vanish if she stayed still long enough. I didn't tell her to open it. I didn't even look at her. I walked over, calm as ever, and pulled the door open. It was Reese. She hadn't seen him in years. I hadn't seen him in months. Her old coworker. Mine too, briefly. The kind of guy you don't forget because he's always smiling at the wrong moments. I'd never liked him. Not because he was loud or arrogant, or one of those people who touches your arm too much when they talk. No, I didn't like him because years ago, I saw the way he looked at her. And once, she looked back. Reese stood there with a tired expression and a folded piece of paper in his hand. No smugness, no performance, just a slow exhale. I told you this would happen, he said. Not to me, to her. Geneva blinked, her face flushing with panic. What are you doing here? He held up the paper. You left this in my car the night Micah bailed. She froze, throat tightening. I could almost hear her heartbeat from across the room. Reese looked at me and said, You were right to send those videos. She didn't stop with Micah. And just like that, the bottom dropped out. Geneva lunged forward to grab the paper, but he handed it to me. I unfolded it slowly. An appointment confirmation, a hotel receipt, and a printed message. You're different. I don't feel invisible with you. No name, just her initials. I didn't mean to, she started, but her voice cracked mid-sentence. You didn't mean for it to catch up with you. I corrected. Big difference. She turned on Reese. You had no right. I gave you 6 chances to stop, he interrupted. You used me as an escape. You never even asked if I had something to lose. I looked at him. Why bring this now? He hesitated. Because I just lost my fiancée. She found the messages, too. Figured if my life was burning down, I might as well toss a match on the truth here. Geneva stepped back like she'd been struck. Reese saw it. He turned and walked away before she could finish. The silence after the door closed was somehow louder than anything else that day. She was shaking now, not crying, just shaking, because it wasn't just me who saw her now. It was everyone. Everyone who mattered. And the person she thought would always be a secret? He showed up at our front door. I can't fix this, she whispered. No, I said, walking past her toward the stairs. You can't. And upstairs, a suitcase was waiting, but not for her. She didn't follow me at first. Maybe she thought I was bluffing, that I'd go cool off, then come back down and ask her to talk. But those days were over. I reached the bedroom, pulled the suitcase out from the closet, and unzipped it with a kind of calm I didn't recognize in myself. It was already packed. Not for her, not for a dramatic exit scene, but for clarity, mine. I wasn't leaving the house. I was leaving us. Downstairs, I heard her pacing. She finally called out, her voice sounding thinner by the second. Elwood, what are you doing? I'm going to stay with my brother for a few weeks, I said loud enough for her to hear. You'll have the house to yourself. She didn't answer, just silence. And then the sound of her rushing up the stairs. When she saw the suitcase on the bed, she froze. You're leaving me? I'm leaving the wreckage. Whether you're in it or not is your call. She stepped into the room slowly, like it wasn't hers anymore, and in many ways, it wasn't. What am I supposed to do? She asked, her voice cracking again. Everyone hates me. My sister won't take my calls. My job's hanging by a thread. I've ruined everything. No, I said, zipping the suitcase shut. You threw it all away. There's a difference. Her eyes scanned the room. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar. I didn't plan for any of this to happen, she whispered. You planned enough, I replied. You packed lies into every corner of our life and hoped I'd never open the drawers. That hit her. She sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, not crying this time, just quiet. Hello, are you divorcing me? I didn't answer. Not right away. I sat down across from her and looked her in the eye for the first time that day. I don't know yet, but I know I can't stay in this house and pretend I still know who you are. She swallowed hard. You're not even angry anymore. I was. But then I realized being angry meant I still cared enough to expect more from you. I stood, grabbed the suitcase, and walked to the door. She didn't move, didn't call out, just sat there like someone who finally understood the house wasn't the only thing being emptied. At the bottom of the stairs, I paused and looked back up. I turned the picture frame sideways for months. You never noticed, I said softly. Then I left. And this time, I wasn't the one who had to look back. It's strange how quiet clarity can be. No fireworks, no dramatic confrontations, just stillness. It's been 3 weeks since I left the house. Geneva never tried to stop me, and honestly, I think she knew better. I stayed with my brother in his guest room, surrounded by mismatched towels and noisy radiators. And yet, somehow, I slept better there than I had in my own bed for the last year. She emailed once, not to beg, not to blame, just a single line, I'm sorry. I never expected you to be the one who finally walked away. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. In the time since, I've started going back to the things I loved before I wrapped my entire identity around our marriage. I fixed the old bike in my brother's garage. I joined a local photography club, something I always wanted to do but never had time for. I even went to a weekend flea market and bought a new picture frame. This time, I filled it with a photo of myself, smiling, genuinely. I don't know if Geneva will find a way to rebuild her life. Maybe she will. Maybe she won't. But that's not my responsibility anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm just free. And weirdly, I'm grateful. Because if she hadn't spent that night at Micah's party, if she hadn't made it so undeniably clear, I might still be standing in that crooked hallway, holding on to something that no longer existed. Now, I live differently. I notice when the frames go crooked, and I fix them. Thanks for listening. If you've ever experienced a moment in history, personal or global, that completely changed your perspective on life, I'd love to hear it in the comments.